Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and today I want to talk about one of the absolute most important things that you could ever learn. It's about building and partnering relationships. And whether or not you're in the sales industry or you want to have a career and build your career or build your own business, this is information that you're going to want to know. You probably want to take notes, and I've taken notes, and obviously I'll be reading some of the most important notes that I have to help you understand the value and the art and science behind building partnerships and relationships. And so I'll be giving you some terms, but I want to start with telling you what we're going to talk about. So we're going to discuss the different types of relationships that exist between buyers and sellers. And of course, in business, that's just some very general information that you really should understand. And then, as an entrepreneur or an employee, you need to be able to understand which types of relationships are appropriate and what are the characteristics of those successful partnerships. And I think that's really important and can be applied to all parts of our lives. So what are the benefits of risks in partnering relationships? How do relationships develop over time? And what are the responsibilities of salespeople in partnerships? And again, I want to stress, these concepts can apply obviously in business, but they also definitely can apply in your personal relationships too. So let's talk about a very important relationship concept. It's the customer lifetime value, or CLV. It's the total combined of all sales. And it really has to do with successfully retained customers, and it's important to all customers. And if you think about your life, we really need other people in our life to help us get to where we need to be, because we don't know everything and we don't have all the resources that we need. But we do probably know other people, or can bring people into our lives that can help us over the span of our lifetime. So these concepts definitely work in the longer view. So if you have the philosophy that there is value in each person that you meet, and you want to maintain long-term relationships, you probably should listen to this video. So let's talk about relationship marketing. These are companies' attempts to develop stronger relationships with their customers. And again, I think as individuals, we are our own brand manager, and so we're going to want to make sure that we develop strong relationships with anybody that we interact with. And so there's a thing called behavioral loyalty, and this is when people continue to buy the same product or service from that vendor over time. And then there's attitudinal loyalty. This is an emotional attachment to a particular brand or company. So I know that I'm a musician, and I am not professional, but I like to play guitar. And I have this loyalty to the Gibson Les Paul line of products and the Gibson company. It's just what I prefer. So each of us probably has some sort of attitudinal loyalty, and that's earned over time. And I know that as a musician, my favorite musicians are the ones that play Gibson guitars, just coincidentally. So sometime I know that Nike built its brand of Air Jordans because Michael Jordan is said to be one of the best athletes of all time, and he's helped earn attitudinal loyalty with millions of people. And so that's important to understand. So there are many types of different relationships in business that we could consider. So there's market exchanges. This is a transaction between a buyer and a seller in which the party is concerned only about its own benefit. There are solo exchanges that are part of marketing exchanges. These are with both the buyer and seller. They're just pursuing their own interest, and there's really no outlook for future business. I can remember traveling to different cities and going in and buying a pair of sunglasses because I forgot mine. There's a solo exchange. Probably never do business with that organization ever again. And then there are functional relationships. These are long-term market exchanges characterized by behavioral loyalty. Some companies do business with the same copier company for a long period of time. I know that I'm always buying things from Amazon.com. I like the way that they operate. Or Costco is one of the best companies on the face of this earth. So when I need to buy things in bulk, I'll definitely come to them. You know, they've earned my my functional relationship with them because they make my life easier, and they bring affordable quality products into my world. So, and they do that because they make sure that the whole bottom line, customer satisfaction, is in place. My expectation as a buyer is met and fulfilled over time. Well, it's the same way in relationships if you think about it. If you are in a one-on relationship with your spouse or significant other, or even your kids or friends and family, you keep them happy in your world when you're meeting their expectations. And so you really have to understand what their perceptions of and of their needs are, and then you just give them no reason to look up for alternatives, right? Pretty simple concept, but that applies absolutely in business too. So there's a lot of different levels of relationships that we're going to talk about. Ultimately, you always want to be thinking win-win, and you've probably heard me say this in many other videos if you've watched videos or you've been to one of my live classes. You know, win-win relationships really are both ways, a win for you and a win for me. You know, both parties are concerned about each other's welfare. There are relational partnerships and strategic partnerships, and they both have to have this win-win philosophy in it. So let's talk about these types of relationships. Got an itchy nose. So relational partnerships. This is where the buyer and seller have a close personal relationship. They're marked by being open and honest communication. Partners trust each other and worry about small details, and they're not necessarily strategic, not necessarily, but they provide some flexibility. So we all have relationships like that, or most of us have relationships like that. Strategic partnerships, these are long-term business relationships. Partners make significant investments to improve the profitability of both parties. Partners have gone beyond trusting each other, and partners get a strategic advantage, and they're created for uncovering and exploiting joint opportunities. And I hate to say it, but I could think of some individuals in politics where it really seems like the spouse, you know, the male and female people, the partners in those marital relationships, political families, they're more strategic than anything else. So you probably think of a few yourself. So selling in market exchanges and long-term relationships. Some really key ideas, very simple steps that I want to talk about. And think about how you can apply these concepts not just in selling or in business, but in your life as a whole. So, market exchange selling goal is making a sale. So, in order to do so, you got to make contact, find someone to listen, make small talk, and ingratiate and build. And ingratiate is you're saying nice things about the other person or something related to the other person. Ultimately, you want to close the sale, and that means delivering a sales pitch to get the prospect's attention and creating interest. You know, sometimes we don't always know what we don't know, and helping people understand the value of your product or service really is important. So striking up a conversation, getting their attention, and being able to talk about things because you've done your homework and you know all about your product or service, and then creating some interest. So really good salespeople can be real naturals about doing that, especially when they are experts on their product. So long-term relationships, the selling really is building trust. And again, think about this as it relates to your personal relationships too, because it's great in business and it's great in your personal relationship. So initiating the relationship, you engage in in strategic prospecting and qualifying. Find out if who could use your product or service or benefit from you, and then can they make the right decisions in order to be able to engage in a long-term relationship with you. And gather, study, and pre-call information. So you really have to be able to understand who your customer is and be prepared to initiate conversations with that person in order to build a relationship. Identify buying influences. Plan the initial sales call. Demonstrate an understanding of the customer's needs. Identify opportunities to build a relationship. And then illustrate the value of a relationship with that customer. And so sometimes being able to help other people understand what service and value you can provide is really important. So let's talk about selling, market exchanges, and long-term relationships a little bit more. So, if you're looking at market exchange selling, the goal is ultimately just making the sale. So, closing the sale, you have to build desire, get the prospect to take action. You have to stay alert for closing signals, use trial closes, overcome objections, and close early and often. These are concepts that I know I've covered in other videos. And then you have to follow through, reestablish contact, resell yourself, the other company, and your products. So that's how you make a sale in market exchange selling, just some basic concepts. Long-term relationship selling, the ultimate goal is to build trust. Trust is the glue of all relationships, and that's true in business, and that's true in our personal lives. And it's been said over and over that the top leaders of the most effective people really have good emotional intelligence. And when you have high levels of emotional intelligence, chances are you really know how to build trust. And that's about being authentic. And I know I have videos online about being authentic as a leader. You might check those out. So, developing relationship. You select an appropriate offering, customize the relationship, link the solution to the customer's needs, discuss customer concerns, summarize the solution to confirm benefits, and secure commitment. How many of these things can you really think about that you actually can really apply in your own personal lives? And I hate to say that even in the workplace, if you're not, we're always selling. And so being very, very aware of the services that you can provide or the value you can provide in a relationship, commonalities, these things are really important. The bottom line is helping the other person understand the what's in it for him or her, right? So, and then enhancing the relationship is absolutely important. You have to assess customer satisfaction. You need to make sure if they're not completely satisfied that you help them get completely satisfied. One of the most important things in selling is to help them understand what they're getting and what they're not. And so you're helping shape their perception of it so that they're not dissatisfied. If they think they're getting an absolute bargain, they need to know what it is and what it isn't, and so being very clear on things and helping paint an accurate expectation for them is absolutely important as a salesperson. Same thing in relationships. If you're not being totally honest with your partner, chances are they may have different expectations for you and you're not meeting them. They'll become disappointed later. So you want to have absolute customer satisfaction in order to build long-term relationships, and it's the same thing with long-term personal relationships too. You need to make sure that they're completely satisfied all the time, and so remembering the what's in it for them is really important. They need to be the most important person in your life, especially if it's your significant other, right? So take actions to ensure satisfaction. Maintain open and two-way communication, expand a collaborative involvement, and then work to add value and enhance mutual opportunities. If it doesn't cost you a lot, or do little nice things to make sure that the other person knows that you're in it for them. Even if it's a nice thank you card every once in a while, or a little gift that they're allowed to accept. Sometimes having little perks or saying something nice or taking someone out to lunch. These little things really can go a long way. Because ultimately you want to build and maintain a meaningful long-term relationship. It shouldn't be about this stuff, but little things can be big things, right? So the right relationship is important, and we're going back to business now. Here's some factors to consider. The type of relationship the customer desires. So sometimes people just want the one-time deal, and sometimes people really need to understand the longer term benefits. So size of the account matters. Ultimately, you want to have lots of big accounts. The more accounts you have in sales, the more revenues that you have, and essentially that means more job security for you, right? Because you become the face of your organization as a salesperson. You need to make sure that you assess the image in the market. So this is why Yelp is such an important tool these days, because it really helps people understand your personal image. And so you can repair your bad relationships if you want, but it's better not to have bad relationships. Sometimes you just can't please people, and that's kind of a tough deal. You can't please everyone, but at least you can try. So technology is important to consider. Technology drives key areas in a salesperson's performance. So really being able to understand the knowledge management technology. It will help you manage the information required to be effective. Relationship management technology helps you build on customer knowledge management systems to create models that can be used to develop a strategy. So helping you really take a look at things from different perspectives. And you have to be aware of the different phases of relationship development. There are essentially 5 stages, and ultimately you want to keep people committed, but it starts with an awareness, and then exploration, and then expansion, and then commitment, and then ultimately dissolution. Very few things ultimately last forever, but it really should be your goal if it's beneficial. So let's talk about each of those stages. Awareness. Salespeople locate, qualify prospect. Buyers identify various sources of supply. Supplier relationship management, or SRM. This is the using of technology and statistics to identify important suppliers and opportunities for cost reduction, greater efficiency, and then other benefits. Exploration. So this is the phase where they're searching. It's just a trial phase for both the buyer and seller, and they're exploring benefits and costs of partnerships. Satisfaction in this phase allows for a relationship to move forward, and dependability and competence are tested. Expansion. This involves effort by both parties to investigate the benefits of a long-term relationship. Both parties is to develop the appropriate type of relationship, and then both parties probe regarding interest in a partnership, both internal and externally. Commitment. So this is when the customer and seller implicitly and explicitly pledge to continue the relationship for a long time. This is the most advanced stage of a relationship, and investments are made at this stage. And it involves promises by the buyer and seller to work over many transactions. So to me, I think about, when I met my current girlfriend, and we went through each of these particular stages, and ultimately I don't want to go into the final stage. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing to maintain a positive relationship that continues to add value, and she needs to do the same thing too, because partnerships are 2 ways, right? Same thing with business, so, and same thing with friendships, right? So really be doing things proactively to be adding value so that you stay strong in that commitment stage. And sometimes that's all about laying down a solid foundation. So this last final stage, and I hate to talk about it because it's a little sad, it's called disillusion. And so that's the process of terminating the relationship, obviously. And this can occur because of these 4 things. Write them down and then avoid them. So disillusion can occur because poor performance, clash in culture, change in needs. There are other factors that are involved. I hate to say it, it's a little tongue-in-cheek, but once you develop a positive relationship, don't mess it up. Yeah, so it takes two people to be in a relationship, obviously, but you need to be doing your part in doing the proper maintenance. And you have to also understand that change is a need. I was married for a long time, many years, and we just grew apart. And her needs changed and my needs changed, and so we just agreed to go our own separate ways. So loss of investments will always impact both organizations. So it really is important to recognize, how relationships start to crumble, and then make sure that you're doing the proper maintenance along the way. So some foundations for successful relationships are important to understand. You have to have mutual trust. Trust is the glue of all relationships. And that means you need to have open communication. People need to feel like they can approach you and be able to talk. If you're going off on people or setting up walls or fake listening, that's not really good open communication. You also have to have mutual goals, and you have to be committed to mutual gain. And then you need to make sure that you have all the necessary organizational support. So it's mutual trust, open communication, common goals, commitment to mutual gain, and then organizational support. So let's talk about these basic terms. Mutual trust. Trust is the belief in one party that the other party will fulfill its obligations in that relationship. And you have to be dependable. And dependability is the perception that the other person and the product of the company will live up to its promises made. So you have to be very clear and help clearly define what those expectations are so that both people are on the same page. Same thing with relationships, right? And this can be proved by third-party references, product demonstrations, and plant tours sometimes. Taking those little steps really helps build trust. You want to do business with companies that are going to be around for a long time and that can deliver as promised. Special presentations, salesperson's experience, and training help. And then just general time, has a way of building relationships. So mutual trust. Competence is absolutely important. They have to have a demonstrated knowledge of customer, product, industry, and competition. That means really the best salespeople really understand their products or services all the way through. Same thing with relationships too. You must know yourself absolutely true and be able to communicate what's important to you, what your values are, in order to really evaluate if this is, what's important to you is really going to work in a relationship. So mutual trust is built through customer orientation. This is the degree to which the salesperson puts customers' needs first, stressing the benefits and solutions to problems over features. Emphasizing the salesperson's availability and desire to provide service. So really being present and available is absolutely important. Honesty, absolute honesty, truthfulness, and sincerity. This is why salespeople have such a bad reputation, is because they can be seen as dishonest, and nobody can trust someone who's not honest. So you have to be absolutely honest, absolutely all the time. And so this sincerity really matters. And likability is important. You can't make people like you, but you need to be likable. And you have to, and you do this by behaving in a friendly manner and finding common ground between the buyer and seller, the other person in the relationship. And so this requires ongoing, increasing personal communication. So open communication, let's talk about this. This is the key building block for personal and professional success. And it's absolutely important in any type of relationship. It's different for relational and strategic partnerships. In relational partnerships, communication goes through the salesperson. In strategic partnerships, direct communication between the buyer and seller. Cultural differences should always be concerned. Talking about personal culture and organizational culture. Common goals are really important. Provide strong incentive to pool strengths and abilities, help focus on exploiting opportunities, and help sustaining the partnership with affecting measuring goals is absolutely critical. Building commitment to mutual gain really means creating that win-win relationship that I'm always talking about. One should never take advantage of another person. Things need to be mutual. There's a mutual investment where it's a tangible investment in the relationship by both parties and involves spending money to improve the products and services, and must be followed by actions signaling commitment. And so being in a relationship means that you're not only making physical investment, but you're also monetarily making that investment too. So I've given you a lot to consider as it relates to one of the most important things in life, and of course in business, personally and professionally. Building partner relationships truly is an art and science, and it really starts with thinking win-win, having effective communication, being able to understand your value or the value of your products or services, and then making sure that people are really a good match. I like to think about things on the job, when people are hired but they're really not a good fit for the organization as it relates to values, skills, talents, and beliefs. Those relationships tend to crumble and people quit their jobs because they don't feel like it's a good match. So people who stay with an organization for a long time, usually they're a good fit for the organizational culture, and the organization has done a really good job in creating an environment that's very clear about what their values are and helping people stay in communication so that they can continue to benefit from each other. So partnerships need to be mutually beneficial, and they always are. In business, recognizing when what a customer's needs are is absolutely important, and giving them no reason to look anywhere else. Relationships are fragile. Thank you for your valuable time in watching this whole video to the end. I really appreciate it. I know it's long, and I hope you have a great day, because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.